Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today on the eve of F1 testing, for many F1 fans it's basically Christmas. I thought, I'd do a video talking about 6 things to watch at F1 winter testing. So starting right away, I think these are probably the 6 most important things to watch for as we have our 3 days of testing to wrap up this week. So number 1, I have lap counts. So at the end of every day, they usually publish the full list of kind of basically the top times, but alongside that, they also have lap counts. And unlike with practice sessions during a regular Grand Prix weekend, in testing, lap counts are probably the thing that many people see as the most important, as it's a really good sign of just kind of general reliability, as well as the cars operating how the teams expect, and they're able to basically execute their run plan. So the teams that are generally at the top after the 3 days of testing in terms of lap counts are usually the ones that are doing had a pretty good test, and they're usually ones that are best prepared for the new season. Now, related to that is reliability. So while that is somewhat related to lap counts, well, I want to specifically focus on mechanical failures and issues with the car. So if we see cars break down on track in really prolonged periods where there's absolutely no running, like 2 to 3 hours where there's where the car doesn't run, those are definitely signs for concern. And having those issues persist through all 3 days of the test can generally be a worrying trend. That being said, some teams will say that picking up those issues during the test is much more preferable to having them in the first weekend or even in the second or third weekend of the season. Number 3, let's see. Long fuel runs. So while the times themselves that we'll see on the leaderboard won't be that important, the times that we get for the long fuel runs where the drivers are for 10 laps or so, 10 or more laps at a time on one set of fuel, can be really important for finding out who has the best long run pace. It can be a pretty good indicator, along with lap counts, of who's in the best shape going into the opening races of the season. So just like you would on a regular practice weekend, looking at the data, looking at the drop in lap times from the first lap to the last lap as the tires wear down and as the fuel loads burn down is a really good indicator of who has the best performance. And while it's data that's not really immediately available to the fans, usually those, if you have F1 TV, you can write some fancy scripts. And I know generally F1, the F1 website usually posts the data on the long run times as well. So that can be a really good indicator of performance. Number 4, this one's not really on track, but body language. So the body language that the drivers and the teams have in the interviews can also be an indicator, not an always a great indicator, but it can be an indicator of how a team's session test is going. In the past, Red Bull as well as Mercedes, I remember in 2019, very, very happy with their car, and you could tell from the body language, even if they give more PR answers, and even the teams that don't have such a good test, if they give more PR, they will still give those kind of answers that will keep PR happy. You can generally get an idea from the body language of if things are going well or if things are an absolute disaster. Given that Mercedes and Ferrari have come out in recent weeks saying, yeah, we knew 2023 was in the bin from the opening test. So that's definitely another thing to watch, I think. Let's see. Okay, number 5. Now, while I said that the lap times on the leaderboard aren't that important, it can be important if it's consistent. So if a team is consistently at the top through the whole day, they're consistently at the end of the day in the top 3 or 4 cars, that's generally, top 2 or 3 cars, I would say. that's generally a really good sign, especially if it's across all of the entire test. So last year, for example, Red Bull were often, even if there were sessions or days where they weren't the fastest, they were often very, very close to the top, and they were close to the top all 3 days. Teams at the bottom, it's not really the same. That being said, if a team is towards the bottom the entire test, that's generally a pretty bad sign. Williams in 2019, when they eventually showed up, for those who don't know, Williams in 2019 had probably the worst F1 test in recent memory. They missed basically the entire first 3 days, I believe, and they showed up they missed 2 full days and 1 morning, so they basically missed almost a third of a test session. So it was an awful session that year. And that year, Williams was basically at the bottom every single session, and that performance basically translated to being at the bottom during pretty much every Grand Prix that season. So another thing that can be important. Number 6. Onboards. So being able to watch the driver's onboards can be an interesting way to kind of get a sense of how the car handles. Is it understeery? Is it oversteery? Is the driver having to make a lot of corrections to the car? They can be indicators of the handling characteristics of a car. Is it if a driver has to make very few steering inputs in corners, that can be an indicator of a car that handles really well and has really good underlying drivability and downforce. So those are my 6 things I think are important things to look out for as we get into testing starting tomorrow. Now, of course, taking a look at the schedule, so we have testing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As of the recording of the video, that's basically tomorrow, the day after, and then the day after that. Starting from 10 a.m. local time to 7 in the evening, with usually a 1-hour break for lunch as well. And then same schedule on Thursday and on Friday. And of course, Friday, Drive to Survive also releases, and hopefully I'll get a chance to watch that over the weekend and review it for all of you fine people. Of course, testing is at the Bahrain International Circuit, where it's been the last several years. I think it's helpful logistically, given that it's also the first race of the season, which is, of course, next weekend, so it's a bit cheaper for the teams. I, of course, really like Barcelona, but with the removal of that chicane and kind of some of the changes they've made to the circuit, it's not as good of a test circuit as it used to be, where it was, a very balanced track where it had high-speed corners, low-speed corners, as well as those straights. First race, of course, like I said, March 2nd, that's a Saturday, not a Sunday. Be careful about that. And another thing to watch in case this is your first test session, there will only ever be 10 cars at a time. The teams only have 1 car. So the drivers will be, alternating. Some will do a full day, some will do only a morning, and then the other driver will drive in the afternoon. So you won't see all 20 drivers at any given time. So that's kind of all for my preview of testing. Should be pretty exciting. I'll try to cover as best as I can. Fortunately, here in Japan, the timing is pretty terrible, especially for the second half of the sessions. But I'll try my best. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.